Ladies and gentlemen, if you are fans of my content, you know that I do not shy away from making videos about Magnus Carlsen. And you, admit it, do not shy away from enjoying and watching all those videos about Magnus Carlsen. Anything he does is fascinating. Well, today, actually yesterday, he began his campaign for the Pro Chess League. The Pro Chess League is an online 4 versus 4 global chess tournament. Now, I have a team. I haven't made an announcement on that yet, but I will, and there's a link in the description for more information about the Pro Chess League. But Magnus is playing for Team Canada, because he's probably Canadian at heart. They have a monster team, and yesterday the season began. So Magnus has to play boards 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the Charlotte Cobras. They were playing against Charlotte, and disaster struck. Like, Magnus got in serious trouble. And in today's video, I'm going to show you what exactly happens when you get a completely winning position against Magnus Carlsen. It was shocking. All right, like going into it, I thought Canada was going to absolutely steamroll Charlotte. And sometimes in these videos, I make a recap just of Magnus's game. No, all of these games are going to feature Magnus. Sit down, enjoy yourselves. Let's look at 4 Magnus Carlsen games. So, game number 1, he's playing the board 4 for Charlotte, who is a grandmaster, all right? Irina Krush, very, very accomplished player. And for some reason, highlight moves are off. Board, highlight moves, tremendous. Okay, so she began with d4. Magnus played a King's Indian defense. You may notice they are playing 10-minute chess. The Pro Chess League is a rapid event, so 10-minute with 2-second bonus time. And Magnus played a very offbeat King's Indian. There are like 10 different ways to play here with black. E5 and C5 are the 2 traditional approaches. There is also bishop g4 to try to take this, drop this back, play e5. There's many, many ways to play. He plays c6. Which is not like, it's not the main thing. It's a very cagey setup, okay? And it has its pros and cons. And so she castles, and now he goes for e5. Now, the traditional way to play the King's Indian is to play d5 and close the center, and then white attacks here and black attacks here. But she played bishop e3, and Magnus took on d4. So when you take on d4 in the King's Indian, the center is more open. Anytime a trade happens like this, the center's open, which means it's going to be harder to attack each other. So Magnus attacks the center. Now, it's a very weird thing when you play Magnus Carlsen. I mean, I'm just telling you right now, like, I don't know if Irina feels this way. I'll tell you right now, when you play a guy like Magnus, you're constantly like, do I just trade all the pieces and try to make a draw? Like, do I try to beat him? Because if I try to beat him, lunge in with a punch, I'm gonna get, knocked out. I don't know. Like, this is the stuff I struggle with. So she takes, and Magnus plays knight d5, okay, trying to get her to do this so that he could grab the bishop. The bishop is holding together the white position, as you can see from the eval bar. Knight d5, c d5, and she plays a little too passively, king h1. And she doesn't have to play king h1. I don't really know what she has to play. It's like a very equal position, but it's very tense. And after already this exchange of pieces, and bishop d4, you can see that Magnus is just playing normal moves, and he still has 8 minutes on the clock, and she has 4. In fact, you can kind of see from the last, several moves, the time usage from this position down to trading basically everything. Irina spent half her time, and Magnus hasn't really thought a whole lot, all right? And you would think, okay, the pieces are just getting traded. Pawn takes pawn, queen takes queen, rook takes queen, pawn takes queen, and bishop e6. And, yeah, black is better. Black is better. How do you evaluate that black is better here? Well, king safety is about the same, but you talk about different pawn islands, that's definitely a closer target than this pawn. But even if we say these 2 pawns cancel out, black just has more meaningful pressure on these 2 pawns, and black has a much quicker kind of jumping into the opponent's position. Just a higher piece quality. So she plays b3, he plays rook d2 in 1 second. She goes here, he moves the pawn out of the way, so now the bishop can't even see the pawn, the white bishop. Rook c1, rook c8, and he just plays a5. He just puts 2 pawns on dark squares and making it very difficult to move these pawns. She plays h4. He brings the king up. She plays e5. He comes back and immediately attacks the pawn that she just put there. She goes to defend it. He uses his c-pawn as a weapon. He plays c4, takes on b3, and now if she takes his rook, I mean, that looks all fine and dandy, right? Apologies. I think he has b2 here. Yes, he has b2. So now this rook is hit, and that rook is hit. And black is just completely winning. Because, for example, if you play rook b1 here, bishop c8, rook b2, just a4, and black is just dominating here. Here, rook d3, rook a3, you win this pawn, bishop e6. And, I mean, Magnus just making it look relatively easy. Takes the pawn, and, I mean, 20 seconds versus 7 minutes. It's tough. I mean, I get it. Listen, I get it, all right? I understand the feeling. And Magnus, against an extremely good opponent, wins the first game, spending, 3 of his minutes just a calm positional outmaneuvering. Literally one borderline inaccurate move by Irina, and Magnus just traded and was like, all right, now I just got to bring my bishop, bring my rook, bring my pawns. And Irina was in it, but time management, tough. And he comes back, he takes. I mean, he's a very good player, all right? Shocker. So in game number 2, Magnus has to play. I think Magnus played Brandon Jacobson next. Brandon Jacobson is, I think, the board 3 for Charlotte in this match. Their boards 2 are Daniel Naroditsky and Awonder Liang. Magnus played d4, Brandon played knight f6, and Magnus played g3. So trying to play maybe a Catalan, but in a slightly different move order. So Brandon goes for a reverse London. Magnus now plays c4, knight c3, and in this position doesn't castle, but rather plays queen b3. And the reason he does this, the reason you delay castling in this position, is so the bishop can come back to f1. And you say, Levy, why would the bishop want to come back to f1? Because of queen b6, c5, queen a6. And in this position, there is a very cool move, bishop f1. It's such a scumbag move. The point is that you set up an attack on the queen. Queen can't go anywhere. So, like, if the bishop comes back, e4, and yeah, it's bad news. It's completely losing position for black. So black has to either shove the knight into the center or try to play b5, and already is, like, quite a bit worse here. So yeah, Magnus knows this, and Brandon goes back to c7. But now here comes the bishop f4 and knight d2, and the idea here is to play this move e4. So he's trying to attack the center. We have g5, but now Magnus e4, danger levels. You take my bishop, I'm going to get your bishop here, and now jumping into the position. Very unpleasant stuff here for black. If you avoid the trade like this, then I just have a mega clamp. I mean, I can do whatever I want here. You'll just never castle. But if you take, and God forbid you allow me to do this, I still have a mega clamp. So Brandon has to take. Magnus doesn't h4. He's like, I'll take that in a moment. Because most of the black pieces are on the back rank. And you can see here the time, once again, g4, h5, sacrificing the pawn. You can take my pawn because you're just going to help me open up my rook, and I'm going to take this. And bishop f5, bishop e4. Not taking with the knight, but rather the bishop. Castles, takes, long castles, and 1 minute to 4. It's just going to be tough. It's going to be very tough to defend this, like, incredibly unpleasant position. Brandon plays queen e6 looking for a queen trade. Magnus bravely grabs the pawn and allows the pawn to be taken because he's got knight c4. And remember, Magnus is a cerebral chess player. I mean, he's the GOAT, right? Like, I could use whatever adjective I can to describe him. He's not going to be like, well, I want to keep my queen on the board because if I keep my queen on the board, maybe I checkmate the other guy. No. Like, if he has to trade the queens, he will, because just simple chess. Simple chess. I'm just going to grab the... Nobody can defend the pawn. Come here, I take the rook. None of your pieces can defend. And when I get this, I'm going to get that, and then probably I'll get this too. So, f4 sacrifice, but now d5, and knight c4, rook e7, knight back to e5. I think Magnus could have, like, again, Stockfish always shows that, like, you can play a bit more accurately, but knight e5 attacks f7, and the reason... There were some tricks here for Brandon to defend, but it's borderline impossible to defend this position with 14 seconds on the clock, and I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, Magnus could have been more accurate. Is he washed? See, like, the difference between myself and like sports commentators on TV is that sports commentators are like paid haters. Some of them literally just spend their entire careers talking negatively about athletes in every segment. I just hype Magnus up. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, you know, Magnus gave up a plus 1.5 advantage back to equality. Is he washed up? It's not, I don't find any joy in that. But yeah, like that's what sports talk show is all about. Just basically talking about who's washed and who's not. Yeah, Magnus gets the pawn down, knight b5, and as you can see, the game will be decided by this pawn, and yeah, the pawn queens. Now, Brandon here, you know, tremendously disrespectful behavior, not resigning to the GOAT. I'm just kidding. He still has chances and never resign. Plus, the pawn is still... listen, maybe Magnus accidentally allows promotion, and you definitely should not resign in this position. I always say don't resign at all, but also don't resign when you have knights, because you never know when your opponent will blunder everything. But in this case, it's not going to work. King e3, and what's funny is that King e3 and Brandon, I guess, resigned or lost on time here, but he has a fork. Like, the position here is completely winning. I mean, if Magnus just plays rook e4 first, because the knights are stuck guarding each other. You come here, you sack, the pawn never queens, you promote. What's funny is that after knight e2, king e3, you can actually make an argument that this position is playable for about 10 more moves, just in case. But no, obviously it's completely lost. 2-0 for Magnus. Now you may ask yourself, Lavi, you told me in the beginning that Magnus lost well, we're getting there. All right, literally we're getting there. I'm not even like clickbaiting you. The last game of this match, Magnus threw it all away for Canada. Yeah. But first, Daniel Naroditsky. Now, this is a matchup you all show up for, right? This is a matchup y'all really like to see. D4, and now this time it's Danya himself playing a King's Indian defense. Magnus plays a line I really like. He plays h3, bishop e3, which I believe is called the Makaganov variation. The point is that you stop this, and you also prepare g4. Like, literally, you prepare g4. And you try to play knight e2, knight g3, g5, h4, h5. You go for this, like, massive attack. Black plays knight c5, a5, c6. Probably we will be seeing all of those moves. Now we see knight c5. That defends the pawn. Now we see c6. Point is that b4 here looks like it kicks the knight out of the way, but there's tricks like this. So knight e2, again, to try to go here and play g5. Takes, queen a5, and Danya playing in a very deliberate and aggressive way. But the way that this system works for white is because the center is completely locked. It's impossible for black to do anything unless you do it on the queen side. And if white does a good job monitoring that, white just wins. Like, literally, white just wins. That pawn is weak, can be targeted from c4 or that diagonal. Not to mention, you can completely clamp down on the king side. So in all of these lines, it's just a matter of time. Like, I mean, does black succeed on the queen side or does white succeed? So queen d2, knight c3, b6, solid. But here comes g5. And here comes c4. And I told you, if it comes down to it and white clamps the black queen side, it's going to be impossible. So Danya tries to fight back with f6. Magnus plays h4. Why? Because he wants to do this. Not because he's creating an attack. The queens are off the board. It's to control the movement of the black pieces. Look at this bishop. Can somebody find a way to get the bishop back into the game? I'll tell you, you gotta play freaking Tetris back here. All right? Bishop f8, bishop e7, bishop d8, bishop... And what happens when you get to c7? You move from one house, 4 states over, and you still got no windows. I mean, this bishop sucks. Bishop is trash. All right? That bishop is just not doing anything. So it's a free roll, basically. There's rook f7. Now knight e2, knight c3. You know, Danya's doing his best. Danya gallops across the board. And just king d2. Now, there goes the rerouting process. So Magnus hit the pause button here and went, all right, which of my pieces is worse than one of black's pieces? This trade doesn't make any sense. Because after DC, I actually get a home for my bishop. I actually can create meaningful play. So the dark squared bishop debate, white has the better dark squared bishop. But bishop h3. Interesting idea here. Basically saying black's light squared bishop is a very important piece. So let's trade it. But I gotta tell you, Danya actually has done a decent job here. I mean, he's not like hopelessly lost. King e2. How is Magnus going to break through here? Yes, black's bishop sucks, but his position doesn't. And like, just because your position is better doesn't mean you're going to win. It's not like sports. Like in sports, I guess the analogy there is you might have a better team. It doesn't mean you're going to win the game. Like, you still have to win. You got to score more points. In chess, you got to win material, deliver checkmate, right? So bishop d8, I told you that reroute was happening. Knight goes back to a 65. I mean, Naroditsky has a blockade. Like, the rook on the 7th rank controls everything. How do you attack this? You're going to play knight b5? Good luck. I'll take on e4. So rook a3, now a5. Okay, but a5 could be creating certain weaknesses. How is Magnus going to exploit them? f3, solid. All right, king e8. Danya walking his king over. But where is it? How are you going to break through here? Well, in every position, the piece trades that one side controls and pawn breaks basically can decide the game. It's a pretty close position. All right, even though both sides only have 6 pawns, pretty closed. Who controls the pawn breaks? Who controls the trades? White. And Magnus maneuvers, and trades. Why now? f4. Long time ago, we decided that the dark squares were better off being held by white, but not anymore. Because in this position, Magnus calculates an absolute butchering of the black position, beginning with bishop takes knight, a completely counterintuitive and stupid-looking move. Why would you play that? We just talked about this. Now the bishop comes alive. It does, but not if you control the pace of the game. f4. Knight d6! And the point is, if you take, hello, and that pawn decides the game. I'm threatening rook h8, king g7, rook h7 mate. And I got news for you. If you take rook h8, king g7, rook h7, king f6, and all I got to do is set this up somehow. I have e5, like king d4, e5, but guess what? I could play e5 even here. That's mate. Insane. I mean, Danya did everything right in this game, and Magnus still breaks through in resounding fashion. The pawn avalanche, yeah, there it goes. And that's it. And Danya's a piece down, and for a second game in a row, Magnus is just calmly converting an endgame. And it took a little bit, and on move 62, rook f4, very, very fancy little finishing technique here. Rook f4, knight g6. So, Magnus just obliterating, right? 3-0. Some of these games were close for brief moments, but Magnus doing Magnesian things, all right? So we go to the 4th and final round, and Magnus is playing a Wonder Liang, who was always a talented young American player. Now I believe he's in college doing things far more interesting than chess. Hopefully he, gets a corporate job making a nice little $250,000. I don't actually know what a Wonder is interested in, but he is in college, and chess, he's not trying to be like 2,700, 2,800, but he's always been very, very good. Now, this is the last round, and Canada is up. However, Canada is not a massive favorite on all the boards. Like, Charlotte's board 4, Irina Krush, is higher rated and a favorite probably against Jennifer Yu, who's the Canadian board 4. Naroditsky, Ariantari, close match. Brandon Jacobson, Razvan Priotu. If I'm just saying names of people you don't know, that's okay. A lot of you are new to the chess world. You don't know some of these people. But Magnus has to win. So Magnus plays a French. All right, Magnus plays a French, d4, d5, knight c3, knight f6, and this is known as the Rubinstein variation of the French, knight bd7. Byrne variation, Rubinstein variation, knight f6, knight f3, and overall, this is very hard to win with black. Very hard. Magnus has had success playing the French in Blitz, but a Wonder has all his pieces out. He has a 3-3. This is not a free pawn for black because bishop b5 is a discovered attack. Check on the king. And even if you castle, you're not going to win this pawn. I'm just going to go here. I'm going to take on f6, and I'm going to checkmate you. Both sides castle. The bishop comes back. And a Wonder just has like a super, super nonchalant and overall pretty solid position. But like I said in the very beginning of this video, if your goal for this game is not lose to Magnus and let the team win, it's very hard to play chess with a do not lose mentality. It's hard. Like, you know, like, if a Wonder was playing me in this position, his mentality would be, beat this clown. But his mentality against Magnus is not beat this clown. No one's mentality when they play Magnus is beat this clown. It's don't freaking lose. Like, it's like, be solid, do your best. You know what I mean? Like, there's a mentality difference. It's like when you play someone 400 points higher rated than you, your mentality is, I just can't embarrass myself. Meanwhile, Magnus's mentality is, I'll find a way to win, I'm the GOAT. Well, that got challenged in this game because I remember exactly where I was when the chess move heard around the world happened. Bishop g4, bishop e6, and in this position, Magnus played bishop takes a2. Now, for the chess historians, you know the game Fischer-Spassky. Bishop takes h2 when Fischer got his bishop trapped in the corner and lost the first game of the World Chess Championship. But in this position, you cannot play the move b3. I mean, that doesn't trap anything. Queen b3, bishop b3. So a Wonder played the move b3. Wait, what? Magnus got his bishop trapped, but I don't understand. He could just take. He can't. You know why? Because if he takes with the queen here, and in a shocking turn of events, white is winning. Completely. First of all, the bishop is trapped like that. Now, there are some tricks here, like you can play rook d8 and counterattack. It's trapped. Rook a1, it's trapped. So you can't do that, right? But what if you take with the bishop? Then I go here, and somehow, despite being defended, you can't move. You know why? Because white is going to go here, or take queen e4 and mate. And it goes from bad to worse. You know how in MMA fights, a guy gets hit, falls, but he gets follow-up hit? Well, it goes from bad to worse because it's +5. Magnus doesn't just blunder b3. He blunders queen h7, queen h6, and rook e5. Oh my goodness. He cannot take because this. A Wonder Liang is about to win the game against Magnus. This is not what anyone expected. Canada was supposed to be a juggernaut. They got Magnus. I hope they're paying him well per match. I mean, he's down 3 minutes. A Wonder Liang is about to beat the GOAT. King d7, the king is going for a run. Bishop b5 check, king c7. The bishop is hanging. The rook is hanging. But now the rook is hanging here because the queen is actually defended. So what do? Rook takes c8. Magnus plays queen b5. Rook takes. King takes. It's +4. It's +4. Now, it's +4 if you take this pawn and... Okay, black is going to try to queen, but you keep the queens on. And you have queen f7, by the way. Bishop f7, rook b5, rook a5. Like, you can stop the pawn. Okay? You just need to keep your nerves and keep the queen on. Queen f8 check, king c7. Now, in this position, you gotta, like I said, you gotta be a little careful. A Wonder is like, wait a minute, if I take on f7 right now, I win the queen. Here's the problem. a4. If you rush and you take the pawns and you don't win this one, you gotta stop my pawn somehow. Rook a5. But wait a minute. Wait a minute. We were like borderline checkmating the king. Now, if a Wonder here had played queen f6, a4, rook e1, maybe he checkmates Magnus, but this is a little scary, right? But he's got a queen, king's open, right? Queen h8. I mean, so a Wonder does what, you know, any normal person does. He trades queens, he's up, a pawn, and he's got a rook for a bishop. Folks, I think you know where this is going. I think you know where this is going. I think you know how all these movies end. Rook a5, bishop b3. A Wonder pushes. Here comes Magnus, though. A Wonder gives a check. King c6, f4, b5, g5. Take. A Wonder's gonna queen, but Magnus attacks his rook. Draw? Rook a5. Oh, that's rook a5 is probably a draw. King b6, rook a8, probably a draw. But a Wonder's like, draw. Drawing who? Who drawing who? Rook e8. Magnus is like, well, now I can push my pawn to a2. Comes back. Wait a minute. The bishop wait a minute. How are you queening? All your pawns are stuck. You can get to g7, but no. 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 Oh my goodness. Now the only move that might not lose right away is rook d1, cutting off the king, and a wonder doesn't find it. No. The king is walking in. I can't believe it. He's gonna save the, it's check. It's check. Oh my God. And I wonder, not only that, he ends the game with less time. It was 4 to 30 seconds. 4 minutes to 30 seconds on the clock. Charlotte was about to pull off the upset of the season, maybe. Even it's only round 1. And Magnus, he wins a game he got absolutely no business winning. The Magnus Carlsen effect in full force, on full display. I was gutted. I was watching a wonder fall apart emotionally on camera. That might be an over-exaggeration. I'm going back to being a sports analyst now. Oh my God, Magnus goes 4-0. Chess Bros win 8.5 to 7.5. He got 4 out of their 8.5 points. I mean, that's why he's there, man. I mean, it is so hard. You got to beat a 2800 level player like 5 times in the same game. For him to underestimate and flat out just miss b3, but then to also miss rook e5. I mean, it's over. I mean, you might as well click the resign button. Nope. Heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. And it ain't over till it's over. More info on the Pro Chess League in the description. And my team, the Gotham Knights, we got Hikaru, we got a stack squad. We're playing on Thursday, tomorrow, the 16th, February 16th. So, very fun, a lot of good prizes. And, yeah, we'll see you there. Get out of here.